You think the Darjeeling Limited is Wes Anderson's weakest film. I saw that ranking you made that had it at the bottom. It's not just you, though. It's a pretty popular opinion, unfortunately.
Why did Wes Anderson come here to make his worst movie?
But hear me out. I'm here to tell you why you're wrong.
Due to the deep dive nature of this video, there will be multiple spoilers about the Darjeeling Limited. If you haven't seen the film yet, you may wish to go do that first, and then come back here. Don't worry, I'll wait for you.
The Darjeeling Limited was released in 2007, and it is the first collaboration between Adrien Brody and writer-director Wes Anderson. The story centers around three estranged brothers who haven't seen each other in a year since their father's funeral. Eldest Whitman brother Francis, played by Owen Wilson, organizes a cross-country train trip in India. He invites middle child Peter, played by Adrien Brody, and the baby of the family Jack, played by Jason Schwartzman. Jason Schwartzman also co-wrote the screenplay for the Darjeeling Limited, along with his first cousin Roman Coppola and, of course, Wes Anderson himself. It's rumored that the three had Adrien Brody in mind while writing the character Peter Whitman. While watching Adrien's performance in the Darjeeling Limited, you can definitely believe that Peter was written with him in mind, because the way he portrays him, he feels like a real person. I mean, he's kind of good at that anyway, but it's especially true here. During my tenure as a fan of his, I have said several times that Adrien Brody would have excelled as a silent film era actor, because he does express so much without as much dialogue as others might need. The character of Peter is more guarded, more introspective, but you can still see it in his face and his physicality. While we're on the topic of Adrien Brody's physical acting, I would like to talk about a prop that he uses throughout the film. The tinted prescription glasses of the Whitman brothers' late father, James, or Jimmy as the mechanic calls him. We'll get to that scene a little later. We see the glasses being used as kind of a symbol of Peter's emotional state at the time. When there's something he doesn't wish to face, or quite literally doesn't want to see, he puts them on. Because they are his father's prescription, he sees better without them. And the tint assists in his ability to hide his eyes. So essentially, Peter uses the glasses to avoid seeing and to avoid being seen. But we see in the scenes where he's being more open or more vulnerable, he takes them off. A good example of this would be the fireside scene. The brothers are opening up to each other. Peter apologizes to Francis for their physical fight they had earlier on the train. And then Peter takes the glasses off and says that he doesn't think their father would really mind him taking his belongings, such as his glasses and his car keys. Jack then asks, did he really say you were his favorite as he was dying? And Peter says, I couldn't tell, he wasn't really breathing. And as he says that, he puts the glasses back on, indicating that he no longer wants to talk about this. While we're hovering around the subject of communication, it's interesting to see the different styles the brothers have. Jack is a writer, so he's kind of a fictionalizer. It's actually kind of cute that Jack is a fictionalizer because the actor playing him co-wrote the screenplay. So he kind of wrote a story for himself, and then his character does the same thing. And Peter, who Adrien plays, is more of an avoider. He'd rather run away from his very pregnant wife than deal with the imminence of fatherhood. He'd rather just not talk to his brothers. He'd rather hide behind the glasses. He'd rather, stick his head out the window while they're having a conversation, which he literally does once, and just avoid. He just doesn't want to deal with this stuff. Whereas Francis is very take control, and he wants to be the leader of everything, and he wants to dictate how everything happens. I also found it interesting that the oldest brother Francis and the mother Patricia have very similar communication styles. The thing about making agreements and raise your hand for this or that. And so you get that idea that Francis learned that from her, and then he took up the mantle as parent to his brothers. In fact, there's a scene where he says, "Did I raise us?" kind of. And you get the vibe that he actually did because of her being kind of flaky and being in and out of their lives. So he parented them the way he knows how, based on how controlling their mother is. So Francis plans everything to the last detail. He has a literal laminated itinerary that he gives his brothers. What's really interesting is the most important parts of this story take place when they are not following the itinerary. You can have everything planned out to the last detail, but life is still going to happen. I'd like to steer the conversation back toward Adrien Brody, if I may, for a moment. To see someone like Adrien Brody enter the Wes Anderson world, to suddenly use a flat affect when he's known for being so expressive, and to excel at it.
I mean, I think there's a learning curve. There was for me. My head tends to go this way, but he wants it this way.
You can see in their later projects together that they have developed something of a shorthand, as Adrien says, where he kind of knows what Wes Anderson's looking for, and he can kind of hit that mark sooner than he could back then. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with his portrayal of Peter Whitman here, but you can see that he becomes more naturally Andersonian as time goes on. Now we reach the point in the story where everything changes. And this is also the part of the story where I'm going to give the heaviest spoilers. Just a warning. The turning point for this film, both emotionally and pacing-wise, is the river scene. The three Whitman brothers see three, we presume brothers, fall into the river, and they go to try and rescue them. Jack and Francis succeed, whereas Peter does not. Even in that moment of such a tragic event, you can still see a hint of that sibling competitiveness, because the way Peter says, "I didn't save mine," it's not only heartbreaking, but it also has a tinge of, in a moment like that, what he's most concerned about is disappointing his brothers. And I think that kind of says a lot about their dynamic in that moment. And after this event, there's a whole section of the film that is very quiet. There's very little dialogue. And we see that evolution in Peter where the weight of it starts to absorb. Now, this segment within the village is carried by the performance of two actors, Adrien Brody and the late Irfan Khan. It was the first time I'd ever seen Irfan Khan in a movie. I've seen him in a few things since then, but I plan to dive deeper into his filmography at some point. He is remarkable here. He goes through such a cycle of grief. You see that shock and that heartbreak, that devastation. And then you see him quietly reflecting, and then you almost see a sense of peace and a sense of, okay, well, here's what we have to do next. And it's all within the silence. And he just expressed that so beautifully. It's just an incredible performance. And within that same silence, we see Adrien's character, Peter, come to accept his role as a father. There's a very young baby within the village, and Adrien's character is there with the parents, and he holds the baby. He just exhales heavily like, yeah, okay, I can do this. And after the experience with the boy in the river, he probably questioned himself even more if he was ready to take care of a child. We see a flashback, a contrast of the day of their father's funeral and how hectic that was. If I may interrupt myself for a moment here, I wanted to mention my favorite part of this Luftwaffe automotive flashback. When the brothers are rushing away to try to get to their father's funeral on time, Peter notices that the mechanic is visibly upset by finding out about their father's death. So he runs back, hugs the mechanic, and then runs away. And it's just such a sweet, subtle, and slightly funny moment, and I just love it. Thanks for listening to that aside, and now back to me. And then they transition back to India, and you see the care that's taken for this funeral and the rituals and how slow the process is, and everything's very methodical and very respectful. It's an actual cultural experience that they're having. You know, the real traditions, the real family, the real loss, and it helps them process the things they were hiding from. Everything past the river sequence is kind of their real experience with India versus the hotel pamphlet style experience that Francis was planning. They really did experience that change, and they really did experience growth and coming to terms with their father's death. And like I said, experiencing India for what it actually is, not what they were told it was or what they planned it to be. One of the main criticisms I hear about the Darjeeling Limited is, oh, it's a white guy's generic version of India. Well, that's the point. Francis is that generic white guy tourist. He wants that surface level experience. He wants spiritual things that just look spiritual. It's like a performative kind of experience versus something real. We get the feeling that all three brothers are avoiding things that are real for various reasons and in various ways. Yes, of course, there are moments of cultural insensitivity in the Darjeeling Limited, but I believe they are intentional. This film was never meant to be an accurate representation of Indian cultures. It just happens to take place in that country. We're seeing India at a very surface level because they are seeing it at a surface level. Their perspective as outsiders is also our perspective as outsiders. It's about their ignorance. It's about their growth. It's not a documentary. And I'm sorry if that sounds insensitive to say, but I just feel like people are missing the entire point. It's meant to be noticeably ignorant because they are noticeably ignorant for at least most of the film. And if I may be the bearer of further spoilers here, keep in mind this entire trip was based on a lie of Francis's. So he never really wanted a spiritual journey through India with his brothers. It was all a ruse to get them over there to help him, quote unquote, rescue their mother from the convent she had joined, because he thought she must have had some sort of mental collapse. So at those times when it feels surface level and fake, and like Francis is just BSing his way through it, it's because he is just BSing his way through it. So overall, I would say this film deserves another look. And I feel like people aren't willing to do that. They just see it for what it is on the surface, much like India has more to it than the Whitman brothers saw on the surface. Thank you for joining me. Well, I got a little more wordy this time. I've been doing lighter content lately, like lists and things, and I just felt like doing a deep dive. I'm going to put some related videos up on the screen, and if you'd like to subscribe, please do so over here. Thank you for watching. Take care.